Bro,
All right, we are back for another conversation with uh, Swami Tirtha and Dr. Vet Conte. Hey guys, how's it going?
good. Hey, Donnie. Good to see you
Good.
again.
Likewise. Um, so before we started the recording, we were talking about the different stages of disease and the different types of um, I guess therapies for helping people take care of themselves. And kind of what you all helped me center around was this idea of, um, I think we're now at this kind of pivot point where everyday human beings and healthcare practitioners are looking for solutions that really allow them to take better care of themselves, whether they're trying to take care of themselves in their job or whether or not they're trying to take care of themselves outside of their job. And one of the pieces that I wanted to talk about today was traditional medicine is great. It serves a lot of purposes. It it helps us when there is emergency care and chronic care, and then there are also different types of holistic practices, like Ayurveda, which I know is a specialty for you to hypnosis, yoga, and some other practices. And so I really want to get a sense of like, as you all think about the different stages of disease or kind of the evolution of disease, where do things begin? Where does traditional medicine fall into the picture? And then where does Ayurveda fall into the picture? So, Dr. Pat, can we start with you around kind of how you think about the evolution of
Sure, I
disease and medicine?
sure. We are living in a wonderful time right now. We're very, very fortunate. We have modern medicine, and it's making major strides in treating all kinds of diseases. Being a medical doctor, I'm first going to protect the medical viewpoint.
For
Uh,
sure.
if you fall and fracture your thigh bone, you have to go to the emergency room. You have to have see an orthopedic doctor. He's going to put in a rod. He's going to heal you. I had problem with my hip. I had to have a hip replacement. I was home the following day. No problem. So we have my wife. She had aortic stenosis, and people with aortic stenosis have difficulty breathing, not getting enough blood going into the aorta and the coronary arteries, so you get angina. Well, we did some preliminary tests. She went into the hospital. They threaded an artificial valve into the aortic area. It opened up. She went home the following day. She's fine. Interesting enough, my sister-in-law, her sister, had the same procedure done 2 months earlier. So the following day, you go home and you're fine. So modern medicine has made major strides. I do a lot of reading of the PET CT scans that are performed for evaluation of patients with malignancy. And many times I'll see patients come in and we'll do the PET scan, and patient will have disease throughout the body. Patient's treated with chemotherapy, comes back 3 months later, we repeat the scan, and it's gone. It's almost miraculous. Now, there are certain things where medicine doesn't quite do such a wonderful job. Okay. Uh, and then you wonder why we prescribe the same pill for the same problem to everybody, in spite of people having different constitutions. Some people will have reactions, will have side effects, and other people will do very well. So why does that happen? It's a little unusual. And why do certain drugs work the way they do? such as aspirin. And there goes my phone. Anyway, um, I always forget to turn it off. I, this is coming to you live, folks.
Oh, all good. All good. The
And
joys of being human.
so, why do certain drugs work? Why do certain drugs help certain people? Why do they don't help certain people? And a lot of this is answered through Ayurveda, and which really had me very, very interested when I first heard about Ayurveda, and I studied Ayurveda on the Swami Tirtha. And you see, everything has its place. Modern medicine has its place, so we don't want to discount modern medicine. Some people say, well, I'd like to go the natural route first. Well, you have chiropractors, you have naturopaths, you have holistic healers, you have all kinds of people you go see. Now, so we don't want to discredit any of those people because, like I said, everything has its place, but you may be going to the wrong place, unfortunately. So, looking for your answers. So, what we do is uh, we try what Swami Tirtha and I are trying to do is to put all this together. We look at healthcare in terms of modern medicine, modern science, neuroscience, and Ayurveda, which is a natural healthcare system. Ayurveda is very harmless, if you will. I can say that. It's very natural, and it doesn't produce any pain. It's non-invasive, which is very important. And there are many, many aspects of Ayurveda. We could go into yoga, we could go into chakras, and many other areas which we don't have time to go into right now. So, what I'm trying to do is say that, like I said, everything has its place and everything can help. It depends. But sometimes we need guidance as to where to go, what to do, how to do it. For long-term care, some of the natural healthcare systems like Ayurveda are extremely helpful. And this is what we would recommend at that point. But for acute healthcare, really, really, really serious conditions, then we have to look to modern medicine first and maybe then follow up with some natural healthcare therapies.
Yeah. It's interesting because both of you know my mom is going through kind of her second cancer journey now. And maybe a month ago, the doctor um took her off infusions and now is upping the dosage on the pill that he had her on. And
Therapy.
so this is
Yeah.
her third treatment plan for this go around. And uh, she's not interested in clinical trials. She's not interested in getting a second opinion and going to another doctor. She really loves her doctor. And um, because of my work that I used to do with cancer patients and their families, I was working with an integrative medicine team. So we were doing kind of traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, Reiki, nutrition, kind of more of the holistic elements of healthcare. And obviously, the patients would go through any kind of chemo or radiation that they needed to go through. But I recently talked to my mom about setting up a meeting with Swami to have her learn more about Ayurveda and kind of seeing what we can do complementary to what she's doing with kind of her Western doctors. And I'm sharing this because you brought up a couple of things, Dr. Pett. One is kind of this idea of it's a both and, it's not an either or, right? We need kind of we need the the luxuries and benefits of modern medicine. And the other part of that is I think as we kind of get older or as society gets faster, or maybe there's other aspects to it, we just don't listen to our bodies the way that our ancestors did when they were hunting and gathering, right? It was a matter of survival. So there's been this disconnect between like what is all of this stuff telling me, and what how do I take care of it kind of proactively and learn what my signals are for me to try something different versus waiting around until I have to go see a doctor, and then the doctor tells me you're sick, and then I'm scrambling around trying to heal my sickness, and in addition, like freaking out because I realize, well, I haven't been taking care of myself for the past X number of years. And so there ends up being this compounding effect of people freaking themselves out because now they're having to deal with any kind of illness that comes up. They're dealing with any kind of game or guilt or frustration or kind of the internal emotional stuff that comes with that. And then trying to figure out how do I create a medical plan that works for myself, whether it's just kind of traditional Western medicine, or is it a combination of Western and Eastern, or is it a combination of, a bunch of different things. So I love the kind of model that you laid out of yours and Swami Tirtha's definition of what healthcare is or how you think about healthcare, because I think that's really important for the people who are coming into your world, right? You think about it very differently, um, because of your background in traditional medicine and because of also your background and your interest in these alternative practices.
I could just say one other thing is
Yep.
we in modern medicine we mainly talk about the physical aspect of healing, but there's another aspect, it's the mental aspect of healing. We need to give ourselves a permission slip to heal. And sometimes that can be difficult because the first thing you have to do in order to heal is you have to forgive yourself. Not only others, but you have to forgive yourself. And some people have difficulty with that. So we have to show them that it is okay to forgive yourself.
Yeah. Swami, I wanna bring you into the conversation, so based on kind of your own experiences and how you think about healthcare, tell us a little bit around, where do you see traditional medicine really serving the clients that you worked with, and where has your experiences and your depth and your expertise with your Ayurveda practice been really beneficial or complementary?
Yeah, so this has been a great conversation so far. So I'm enjoying hearing this side of it. In the let's see, I'm trying to think where to start. You were talking about in the old days, people, the farmers, they farmed, and if they had to talk to someone in the next town, they had to walk over to the next town or ride on their horse or take days to get somewhere. And then one day somebody created a radio. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Where's the little people in the box there that are talking? Well, it's on the airwaves. You're going, oh, sure, sure, the airwaves, right? And I think that's a very appropriate metaphor for alternative healthcare. It's not really alternative, it's the original healthcare. All the indigenous cultures, independently of one another, use some forms of these things. Only through the politics, I'd say, of Western medicine. I mean, the facts are when Andrew Carnegie donated money to Western medicine, allopathic medicine, like anybody in any place, when you get a little power, you try to hold on to it. So it just facts, it's human nature. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. But before that, it was home tales, old wives' stories that kept people alive. And that's just to see the evolution of that. But then that's still 3D. That's still walking from this village to the next village. But when you start in with things like energy healing, where you're just healing like Reiki, or distance healing, where you're healing somebody in another country, uh, it's like, oh no, there's no such thing as radio waves. There's no such thing as healing waves. Uh, Shamans who will take you on a shamanic journey to your last life, and like, let's say you're afraid to fly airplanes. You're afraid, no, a better idea, you're afraid to cross bridges, and it's affecting your life, your family, your career. I can't go over this bridge, so I'm going to take 4 hours around the long way to get there, if you can get there at all. And the boss says, you either drive over the bridge or you don't have a job. So you go to this shaman, and he says, all right, let's go on a journey and to another lifetime where you were actually thrown off a bridge. Might have been a rural bridge, but it was a big cavern, and that was the end of you. The shaman can change that so it never even happened. And now that is out of you, that experience. So suddenly you don't have fear of crossing the bridge. Or hypnotists, they do the same thing in their own way. It sounds weird, but it happens, people experience this with enough frequency, and there's a lot of research on a lot of these things. So in terms of, we're taking the woo-woo and we're making it woohoo, it can work. It really works. Look at the research. Look at the people. So that's just the general framing of these, Ayurveda's. It starts off in that 3D world, physical health, digestion, the gut biome. They said 10,000 years ago, the gut biome was the cause of most physical conditions. Western medicine only is accepting that now in the last decade or two. Then Ayurveda says things like emotional health. Well, how do you, and we could talk about nervous system deregulation. Well, there's aromatherapy, there's color therapy, there's mantras, there's any number of things to regulate our emotions, our vagus nerve, our heart rate, all that. And then there's mantras which even elevate you and take you to higher consciousness, to free your brain, to free your heart. And then again, going back to things like shamanism, you get into intuition, psychic things. And a lot of people, we talk about women's intuition, mother's intuition. It's there in all of us. There's a research study years ago in Inc. magazine, I believe, that said the most successful business people were the most psychic, most intuitive, because they have to make decisions on the fly. And then you get into things like talking to people who have passed, having dreams from somebody says, hey, watch out tomorrow. Don't take the subway. And you said, well, that was weird. I'm not going to take the subway tomorrow. And then there was a big issue on the subway, And there's documentation of people connecting to loved ones in heaven, or other people connecting for you and giving you hard facts. When you were 6 years old, your grandmother fell off the train. Yeah, that's right. How did you know that? Well, she was telling me that, So it's real facts, evidence-based. Again, we take the woo-woo and we connect it to something woohoo. Woohoo. So just, yeah.
No, go ahead.
So that's like the second level. Framing the different radio frequencies, the different radio stations. You might not like rock and roll, and you could sit and complain about it, or you could change the station to pop or to jazz or whatever. Yeah, sure, frequency waves, sure, but it's all frequency, and I think it was Einstein who said the future of medicine will be frequency medicine. It's frequencies. It's all different. We're all radio, radio tuners, basically.
Well, it makes me. I just had this thought literally like 2 days ago, where I was thinking about how much how much people believe so much in faith, but then when it thinks about like energy medicine, they feel like different worlds for people. I'm like, wait, but how does how it's basically the same tool, but focused on the different wording. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and and I think that brings me kind of to this next part of the conversation, which is um really around this idea of, so what do we believe? What do we trust? Like used to see the cartoons or the drawings or hear people say, "Oh, that person's a quack," because they're doing some kind of blending of herbs or energy medicine or Reiki work. And you're right, it's been around for thousands of years, regardless of kind of what the culture was. It was in Native American culture, it was in
yeah.
um Eastern and Asian cultures, it was in African cultures. It's still a big part of all of these cultures. So there is there is something inherently truthful about it that is connected to kind of our well-being or wellness or kind of reconnecting to our light. And so when I hear people say, "Oh, that person's a quack," or or that feels woo-woo, in some ways I get it, because I'm I'm a very logical person, but I also have a very um spiritual and high belief component to kind of whom I am, or to my constitution. So I'm always open to the possibility that, yes, there is also something else. And so when I can kind of be in the blending of those two things, I feel like, oh, I'm really humming along. And when those things are feel diametrically opposed, then I feel like there's a lot of internal tension, and I'm trying trying to figure out, which one do I believe? Do I go to the doctor for this, or do I need to go to the naturopath for that? And then that ends up just perpetuating the worry. So for you all, and especially because of the work that you're doing with your Chakra Vedas program and your master's and your PhD program, how do you how do you help kind of explain what you are doing in those programs to kind of modern day nurses or healthcare practitioners, because they're running around in the ER, they're running around in a doctor's office or a clinic, and they're trying to take care of their patients, they're trying to take care of themselves. Um, and they recognize, like, this isn't a sustainable model. Like, I can't take care of myself and take care of all of these people. I have probably five cousins who are nurses. Two of them literally just finished nursing school 3 months ago. So I'm kind of watching them operate in those environments. And then I think about what you all are doing with Chakra Vedas, and I'm like, oh, this would be wonderful for them to go through. And there's still that kind of like, I don't know if I trust this. Like, what is this? Because I can't see it.
Well,
Well, that's where the research comes in. Go to the NIH website, and everything we teach is validated by multiple research studies.
well, what
That's
Donnie was talking about before is that we've been indoctrinated since we're very young to believe certain things that are true, that we felt were true, or considered true. And in a sense, to some extent, they are, but and things that we were taught probably helped us get through life to the adult stage. And now that we're older, we start expanding our horizons. And so there are a lot. What did Shakespeare say? Hamlet said to Horatio, there are a lot more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. It's so true. So even Hippocrates was very, very, Hippocrates, we have to take that Hippocratic oath to graduate medical school. Hippocrates said it's more important to know what kind of a person has a disease than what kind of disease a person has. What did he mean by that? Well, we're all not all cut from the same mold. And if you indulge me a moment, I have to go back to embryology. Because during the embryologic growth, embryology of our development, there are three basic germ cell layers that determine what we're going to look like, and maybe what we're going to think like as we mature. The endoderm, ectoderm, and mesoderm. Now, if one predominates, then if the ectoderm predominates, then people tend to be tall and slim. And these are the people we hate because they get eat and eat and eat and eat, and not gain weight. I have a friend like that. I thought, oh my God, he used to come to school with 2 sandwiches, snacks, all these things. I said, what if I ate like that? And he's skinny, right? And then you have a person, if the mesoderm develops, then people tend to be a little more muscular, maybe not quite as tall. You know, the basketball players, the real tall, skinny basketball players, I mean, that's a typical ectoderm. And the mesoderm tend to be more like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I wish I liked Arnold Schwarzenegger. But anyway, they're not quite as tall. They're a little heavier, a little thicker boned, a little more muscle, because the mesoderm produces muscle. Then the endoderm people, where the endoderm predominates during embryologic growth, they tend to be a little heavier, thick bone, a little more subcutaneous fat. And if you will, I could complete this by giving you examples. When I was learning how to draw blood from people, okay, I went in the room, the first patient I went to see, tall, slim, put the tourniquet on, his veins popped right out. Oh, this would be a snap. I put the needle in, and the vein moved away from the needle. Did it again. The vein kept moving. It was playing cat and mouse with me. I couldn't believe it. I had to almost sit on the vein to get the needle into the vein. Well, he was tall and slim. And then the next patient I went to see was very heavy, right? A kapha person. Endoderm developed person, let's put it that way. I put the tourniquet on. I saw nothing. I couldn't find a vein. I didn't see a vein. How am I going to get real blood? I can't find the vein. So it's the kind of thing we have to play around, you feel for the vein. Anyway, I stuck the needle in, closed my eyes, stuck the needle in, and I got the vein and drew the blood. Okay. So then the next person I went to see was a mesomorph developed from the mesoderm. And he was a little more muscular, younger guy. And I went to draw the blood from him. And I was muscular. I could see the vein very nicely. And he almost passed out. You know, the young, strapping football players, big guys, they hate needles. They pass out when they see a needle. Anyway, I was able to get the blood from him without a problem. And and also goes with their mental constitutions. I could explain this to you in terms of a story that Deepak Chopra told. When one winter he was flying back from the east, going back to California, and they had to stop in Chicago. So they're having a blizzard in Chicago. So he they're all waiting to get on the plane. Well, then an announcement comes over the PA system and says, sorry, but flight to Los Angeles has been canceled because of the inclement weather. We're having a blizzard. Planes can't take off. Well, now this separates the endomorphs from the mesomorphs from the ectomorphs, of course. I'm going to use those terms because I think most people are familiar with those terms. The tall, skinny people, well, they started to cry. They were running around trying to make new reservations, how they could get back. And they're all upset. They're stressed out. The pitta people or the mesoderm people are at the desk pounding their fists on the table and saying, you can't do this. They're yelling expletives at the person that made the announcement, really angry. And the endomorphs, we call them kapha people, they just gently sauntered off to the ice cream parlor. So, see, people, it depends on your nature. Not everyone has the same nature. So this is what Ayurveda teaches. They break people down into different constitutions. It's like Hippocrates said. More important to know what kind of a person has a disease than what kind of a disease a person has, because they're going to respond differently to different stimuli. Right? That's my preaching. Thank you. I'll take my bow now.
Hallelujah.
Well, then you
Yeah.
flip it over to the Swami Tirtha.
Yes, that's I mean, Dr. Pat is touching on one of the most unique things about Ayurveda is it's like a tailor-made suit. Who are you? And we'll know, we get to the root cause of things. So what causes this? Well, for the tall, skinny person, one thing causes it. For the muscular person, something else causes it. And for the big bone, heavy set person, a third thing causes it. And we know which organs they are, where they start, and we know how to bring balance there. And we do that through, I don't want to go too deep into it, but to keep it simple, air, fire, and water. The skinny people are more air, more cold and dry, and they tend to get excess of air, which is dry skin, gas, and things of that nature, or spacey heads, spacey brains. So by the fire people, more heat, heat rash, hot temper. The water people, more lethargic, more water, holding water in the system. And so you balance the excess of one with the other two. It sounds overly simplistic, but that's really what it is. If you have a heat rash, take some water to cool it down. Take some air, something to cool it down. So we could look at foods. Don't have garlic if you have a heat rash, because it's going to heat it up more. Have some bitter vegetables, some leafy greens. That's cooling, that kind of a thing. So it personalizes it. And what's really interesting these days, Donnie, you asked about how do we look at things? We look at, say, the millennials who are really saying, we want tailored, we want just to target what's going on for me right now. Tell me how to get rid of this thing, how to get it at the root cause. Is there evidence that tells me in advance that this is going to help me? They're into the holistic, but they're also going to the psychologists, psychiatrists. So they're taking something from column A and something from column B. And that's what I think people are doing these days. And this is where let's just say the alternative world offers many, many options.
Yeah.
And to stay with Ayurveda for a moment, another beautiful thing about Ayurveda is they say is there's 6 causes of disease. Western medicine can only detect it when it's about starting to develop physically in the 6th and 7th stage. Because if you go to the doctor and they take the test and it doesn't show up, they say, oh, it's all in your mind, which is really kind of upsets people to say that you're crazy because they feel an imbalance. Something is off. And that's where Ayurveda, energy medicine, shamanism, all of that shines. Because Western medicine is just that, those two bands of the radio frequency, if you will, like 106.7 and 108.3. But down at 88 and 89 and 90 and 100, that's where the alternative uh, healing modalities operate. So it's all on that radio scale, just a matter of tuning there. And to your question about how do people decide? Well, if it's those nurses, if your cousin, if your aunt, your sister, whomever those nurses are, and they're stressed out, and maybe a lot of people have tried the drugs to calm them down, and it doesn't work. And they don't want to take a weekend course in meditation, and they don't have the time to sit for a half an hour every day to meditate. And say, well, look at the research. Well, breathing takes seconds for it to work. Come take a course, come take a class, 1 hour class in breathing, go back to work. And you have stress, do some breathing. You feel better, now you can go back to work again. So I'd say start from the simplest, easiest. Look at the research. Ask AI, what are the quickest healing? Show me the 5 things in holistic that are quickest to heal. So breathing, intention, movement, chanting, aromatherapy. And just start from the simplest one and the one that seems like the most fun for you, because laughter is the best medicine. Fun, happiness, joy. I mean, we even in the holistic, we're sounding a little technical, but are you at peace? Are you feeling purposeful? You feel a connection to your family, to your faith? Are you in nature? How connected are you as a person to all those levels? Are you eating health, or are you eating junk foods, processed foods? I mean, that's the simple 1 or 0. Is it natural? Is it unnatural? Lifestyle, food plans, etc.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There are a couple of pieces you talked about that I just kind of want to extract. And the first one was this last piece around everything kind of coming back to those
Fundamentals.
yeah, the fundamentals, kind of our primal nature. Right? It's like, are you taking a full breath, or are you just breathing in your chest, right? But I think, and this is where, for me, this is where the nervous system education piece is so
Yeah.
important, because people hear dysregulation, or they hear anxiety, or they hear survival stress, but there's a difference between hearing it, kind of understanding it, experiencing it, and then like doing something about it. and and similar to what Dr. Pat was saying about, we all have different constitutions. Like, we all have different traumas and experiences and levels of capacity and levels of regulation. And those who are kind of more grounded and steady and regulated, they might need different tools than somebody else who is more activated and kind of always in hypervigilance. So they, when you were talking about um, kind of millennials wanting that more personalized medicine, I think this is where education is so important. And both of you were talking about different aspects of Ayurveda, like the meso, the endo, and the
Ecto.
ecto,
Yes.
right? Versus kind of the vata, the kapha, and the
Pitta.
Pitta.
pitta, right? But a lot of people don't know what those are unless they um, have learned it from their culture or their family, or they went to school for it, right? I didn't know about them until you all started talking to me about them, even though I've heard about Ayurveda and Ayurvedic medicine probably 10 years ago. Like I haven't done enough digging of my own to understand kind of like what does it actually mean and how do I experience that, right? So I think um a big one of the takeaways that I got from kind of the what you two were just sharing was, look, we're at this point in time now where education or a new type of education is really important. This education around um, our anatomy and physiology, the education around different types of practices, the education around energy medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, so that we can then begin seeing, oh, am I a fire person or am I an air person? Like what does that mean? And then you started naming things like dry skin, dehydration, right? Like, oh, okay, now I have something to work with so I can connect the terminology with kind of what I'm seeing in my everyday experience. And I think one of the values that you all bring through the programs that you do or your education or your conversations with people like this is that you're really beginning to break down what these different terms means so that people can actually connect with it, right? Because I there's a part of me that thinks people don't want to connect with it because they don't want to connect with it. I think they don't connect with it because there is no translation of the material and what it means. And so it might be a slow process, but I think this is the beginning of the process, especially as um, more individuals, I think across generations, but especially like for millennials and after, we really want to know like how do we operate? How do we make ourselves feel better? How do we not drive ourselves crazy like sitting in an office or sitting in front of a computer all day? And so I'm excited about kind of the legacy the two of you are leaving or creating for people, because you're really giving us some insight into these things either we don't know or we've heard about and now have more access to. But Swami, you've been doing this for what, 40 plus years. You've written a book. Dr. Pat, same for you. You're a medical doctor. And so there's a lot of credibility behind behind the two of you and the education that you're providing, because now we're like, oh, okay, there's science behind it. There's thousands of years of education and wisdom behind it. These have been in societies or cultures for years, and so it's really cool to see kind of the evolution of the work that you all are doing and the integration of the work that you're doing in healthcare, because I think it's going to become a bigger part of the conversation, especially over the next decade or so.
Well, along those lines, an old aphorism, I guess, came from Greece, says, "Know thyself." It was popularized by Emerson a number of years ago. And this is what Ayurveda teaches us, to know ourselves better, know our own constitution. So if you know your constitution, you know what to avoid, what's good for you, what's bad for you. It also helps you to know what kind of medication you should be taking, what you shouldn't be taking. And especially the food plan is extremely important. It because each constitution has its own uh, proprietary or its own preferred food plan. Uh, because some of the foods that people may take may not agree with them. Some people, you could eat the same food, and one person with a different constitution will have a reaction to it, and the other one won't. Oh, why is that? So it's better. It's good to know your constitution. And there's an aphorism in a major principle in Ayurveda that says like increases like. So that supposing you are a fire person, okay. So if you go out on a hot summer day and play tennis all day long, competitive tennis, then you go into the clubhouse and you have hot, spicy food and lose your temper a little bit. Well, all this is adding to the fire element in you, and you got to become very imbalanced. So if you know that's what that your constitution, you know what to do and what not to do. Uh, anyway, that's just a brief example of it.
Yeah, I think you you've given me some ideas for our next conversation around the different the different dosas or the different types and really breaking those down so people can get an understanding of what do those actually look like in in human beings? How do they show up in healthy human beings and how do they show up in human beings who are out of balance or who are dealing with disease?
No, that's everything in life should be in balance. And that's what the Ayurveda teaches. Got to balance everything to keep. See, when you're born with a certain constitution consisting of, I'll make it very simple, air, fire, and water. Okay. We call them Vata, Pitta, Kapha, but let's keep it simple. And that proportion that you're born with, you should maintain that same proportion throughout life. Well, we know in life gets tough at times. It can be difficult to keep that same proportion. So we're always aiming, trying to bring back the 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 Constitution back into those three proportions, certain proportionality. I mean, they're usually not all the same. Very rarely are they all the same. So that's the balance we have to juggle between.
Yeah. What before we wrap up, I want you all to have a little bit of an opportunity to talk at a high level about the Chakravedas program and then the master's and PhD programs that you all have put together. So, Swami, do you wanna say a little bit about those two or those two different uh ways of kind of working with you, but they're three programs.
Yeah, the course that Dr. Pat and I put together, he came up with the name Chakrabeta actually, is directed toward wellness to address anxiety and move it to calm, and to address burnout and move it to energized. Is that simple. And each week we look at a different chakra and we talk about what causes it to either be able to be healthy and keep you calm and energized, and what things you might be doing to cause the what you don't want, which is the anxiety and the burnout, the overwhelm. And we have it in two, each class is in two parts. We give some theory so you understand it. And then we play some games. And the games are to regulate your nervous system. So we start with breathing. And literally within seconds, people are feeling better. And this is very different than the old college classes where you sat there for an hour or two and start to fall asleep and taking notes. Then the second thing we do in the class is we do a movement with meditative music soothing music. Everybody stands up, even in the Zoom call, and just moves as you like to move. And getting up after, say, a half an hour of a class, everybody feels better already because their energy is moving again. So now they've already felt two experiences of relaxation, of energizing. And then at the third game, Dr. Pat takes them through a guided meditation. And the reports from the students week after week, I feel better. And then cumulatively by the last class, people were getting better. They were seeing growth in the positive direction of their life, not just getting rid of anxiety, but seeing they're able to grow their life in their dreams, in the direction of their dreams. And some miraculous things. One woman had, in just from a breathing exercise, her gum infection went away and her sinus infection went away, never to come back in months.
Wow.
6 months.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay,
So
thank
that's a
you.
little bit about the class, and I'll pass it over to Dr. Pat to pick it up from there.
Okay. Donnie, did you have a question or you just want me
Yeah,
to proceed?
yeah. Will you talk a little bit about um the master's program and PhD program for the practitioners who want to go a little deeper with you both?
Well, we're working through Akamai University, which is a distant learning school and is internationally accredited. And this is all in the preliminary phase. We've been talking about it, trying to develop a master's degree program and a doctorate degree program, and maybe even a baccalaureate program in an integrative Ayurveda. We may use a different term than that, but uh, because right now, actually going to college is very, very expensive, very difficult. And I look at myself when I went to college, I took a course, it was called pre-med. But I'm thinking, I thought, suppose I don't get into medical school. What can I do with this degree? Nothing. It didn't prepare me for, I'd have to go take some teaching courses, education courses. But what we're looking at is developing a program, so a baccalaureate program leading to a master's degree and a doctorate degree. But when people finish especially the baccalaureate program, they would have learned Ayurveda and ancillary and other modalities of treatment. They'll get a baccalaureate degree, and we'll also teach them marketing, like somebody that we know. Maybe you could teach marketing. Um, and the business, we have people that could teach them business. So when they get out of school, they'll have a career where they get put up a shingle and they can start treating and have a business and a profession at the same time. So this is very important. And it will cost a lot less money and they could learn from their own home in their pajamas if they wish. You know? So it's very, very attractive people right now. I mean, college is extremely expensive, and then you have a lot of other things going on in college. In fact, they did a survey, and most people said, over 70% of people said, you don't need a college education nowadays. Well, in one sense, it's true. What we need tradespeople. That's what we need. We need tradespeople. And we need people that can also offer alternatives to allopathic medicine. And and by the time they finish, they'll have a career and a business and they can get started. If they wish to proceed any further, we'll have a master's degree program and a doctorate degree program for them so that they will be able to call themselves a doctor of whatever, Ayurveda medicine, integrative healthcare.
This is exciting. I know I have and part of kind of what we talk about is our gifts or um, and how they show up. And one of the things that often happens for me is that I end up getting like very clear images. So I had this image of um the work that the two of you are doing kind of nestling its way into the market, right? And you have your kind of naturopath, you have your allopathic medicine, and then you have the Ayurvedic medicine. And it's like, yeah, all of them are needed.
And
Um,
there's an overlap,
yeah, there's an
a big
overlap.
overlap with everything.
And
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say to come back to your story about your relatives who were nurses and
Mhm.
who may not believe that in this stuff. If they had a BA in Ayurvedic medicine, for example, they're going to get the science behind it, the medicine behind it, the research behind it. So, A, they're more comfortable, and then their clients, their patients, they're not going to lose face. They're not going to get kicked out of the industry. It's a bridge to a permission slip, if you will, for nurses to learn it, to practice it, and to teach it.
Very, very good stuff. Awesome, gentlemen. Thank you again for another wonderful conversation. I'm looking forward to our next one.
Thank
Uh,
you, Donnie. Great
yeah.
job.
Thanks for listening in, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye bye.